So our next question asks about cooperative breeding and how do animals come to an understanding within cooperative breeding? How do they find a partner and initiate the co-parenting? It's hard for us to ask questions about what they understand or don't understand. But I would say that for the most part, cooperative breeding is going to occur usually when there's limited resources that are defensible by two or more individuals, that maybe one individual would not be able to defend that area. Whether it's a nest, a territory, or whatever. So you've got a limited resource, but it can be protected, but it requires several individuals to protect it, and it also has enough resources on it for those individuals. So you have to have those ecological circumstances, and then who ends up being those partners? Probably initially it might be individuals who are related to one another. So it's probably likely that, particularly if you find individuals of the same sex that are defending an area, there's a good chance that they would be sisters or brothers. Probably less likely to be brother-sister pairs, mainly because that would then result in inbreeding in many cases, which would lower the fitness of those individuals that participated in that. So you're likely to see sister-sister pairs, brother-brother pairs, or you might have this cooperation with the younger individuals helping older individuals, but they're not of breeding age yet. Initially, it probably starts off with like siblings, but again, depending on the ecological circumstances, who disperses, and that sort of thing, you might get, and you do get cooperative breeding among individuals who are not related. But it's very dependent on the social structure of the organism. It's dependent on the ecological circumstances, their life history, their dispersal. So a lot of different things go into deciding sort of who is going to co-parent with one another. This next one asks us a little bit about personality and have they found a way to study personalities, and they do. They look at things like novelty-seeking behavior, exploratory behavior. So if you were to watch a group of animals, you'll find that even if you have multiple pets, you'll find that some are very exploratory. They'll go and check things out. Others will hang back. And so that's one way that they can look at some of these different personalities. They can look at, individuals that are more likely to bully others. And again, you can probably see that in some of your pets if you have multiples. We definitely have alphas in our family. We have those that tend to be a little bit bullyish, those that are much more likely to run towards a new noise, and those that will run away from it. So you can do some of those kinds of techniques for assessing personality. So one of the things this next question, I think, asks a little bit about, one of the things they found then is they went in and they looked at, is personality a good indicator of sort of who's going to be the dominant and who's going to be the subordinate in this allo-parenting type of situation. In the meerkats, they really didn't show that personality traits were correlated with whether or not they became the dominant breeder or the subordinate. So even though they could see that there were differences in their personalities, their exploratory behavior, etc., they did not see those differences translate over into whether or not they became dominant or subordinate. In this next slide, in the Seychelles warbler, what they found is that personality traits were heritable. The likelihood of it being exploratory was a novelty-seeking, that kind of thing, is a heritable trait. They found that in humans as well. So risk-taking does seem to be heritable at least to some extent. And this study that Edwards did looked to see whether this exploratory behavior promoted extra-pair mating. So did they tend to go and have offspring with other individuals outside the pair bond, right? So you have a pair bond, and were those individuals that were more exploratory likely to go out and have more offspring in the extra-pair copulations? And they did not find that correlation. So it did not look like that was correlated. So yes, we can look at personality traits, and then we can go and ask questions like Edwards did here, and ask questions about whether or not that exploratory behavior affects their overall reproductive success in certain ways. And so here they did not find a correlation. So I have a couple of general questions at the end. I didn't really have a slide to put these on. The first one asks about Florida scrub jay and western scrub jay. They are closely related species. One of them is social. The Florida scrub jay does tend to live in social groups. It has siblings that will stay behind and help raise next year's offspring. And the western scrub jay does not do that. And again, probably one of the reasons for this has to do with several things, but a lot of it is that more the ecological circumstances. So if you look at the Florida scrub jay, they have a very limited habitat. It's restricted to a very small area, and so it may be that it is very difficult for a young male to strike out on his own and actually acquire a territory. So what ends up happening is he stays a year or so and helps his mom and dad raise next year's offspring, and then after doing that he inherits a piece of that territory. So I think you find it a little bit more in these ecological circumstances where going off on your own is likely to not lead to success, and so they end up having this social structure. If there are available habitats and a young male is very likely to be successful leaving, like he is in the western scrub jay, then they're less likely to be social. The next question, do select individuals tend to receive more benefit in cooperative groups instead of the community as a whole? I'm not exactly sure what this is asking. So let me interpret a couple of different ways. One is if it's asking, do some individuals get more resources than others as a member of a group? Clearly you can look at chimps and see that yes, that's true, that you will have alphas and you will have individuals that get to eat first and get to have the best of the resources, and other individuals get less. So we definitely do see that. So if that's what it's asking, then yes, you definitely do see asymmetric distribution of resources in many cases. But I think what you'd find is that in cooperative groups, not only do individuals within the group do better in many cases, and that's why they're cooperative, but also that entire group, that entire community probably has an overall higher average reproductive success. So I think you would find that the answer is kind of yes to both. Individuals within the group do better, and the group as a whole probably does better as well. Otherwise, we wouldn't really see that evolving. So if individuals that belong to the group or the group itself does worse, we wouldn't really expect to see that kind of dynamic evolving in an organism.